folks, it's the Police Chaser again. Welcome to one of my videos. This is the second part of two, looking at the Bowling to Laisterdyke line in Bradford, the disused Bowling to Laisterdyke line. In the first part I went from New Cross Street in West Bowling, where Bowling Junction was, through to Wakefield Road. I've got Wakefield Road bridge behind me, so I'm not quite sure why the camera zoomed in there. There we are, and it's like at the front of Bowling Station. So I'm going to walk down Square Street. We're going to take you in this bit from Wakefield Road down to Laisterdyke, the other end of this bit of the line. As I explained in part one, it's always known as the Bowling Laisterdyke line, and a lot of people think it was actually just built between the two, but it came through from Leeds originally. Most of the route from Leeds is still in use actually, from Leeds to Laisterdyke, and then down the line that used to go into Adolphus Street for a little bit to Hamilton Street Junction. That's part of the Leeds to Bradford interchange line today, so you can still travel down most of the line, but the bit between Bowling and Laisterdyke is disused. See this wall coming in here, the goods yard for Bowling Station was across there behind that building. Then this wall curved round because there was a branch line that came off. We said in the last part the steps that gave access to Bowling Station were retained to give access to a signal box that controlled the junction. And then the branch went across this rather low bridge here. You can see the abutments on both sides. That served Bowling Ironworks, which closed in 1921. However, this bit of the branch survived into the 60s. Just up there were some sidings which basically appear to have been used if any of the local goods depots or factories were full of wagons. They used to just bring them out and put them in there to get them out of the way. But it also continued on part of the former Ironworks site. Bradford Corporation built a bus depot, and behind it was a yard. Part of it was used for training trolleybus drivers. They had a circuit of wire where they could practice driving the trolleybus before they went out onto the road to do the rest of the training. But they also had a materials depot where they kept spare poles that held the overhead wire initially for the trams and then the trolleybuses, spare reels of wire and road materials, and a lot of that material came in via the train, so that line was retained to serve that. I think it closed in the 1960s, obviously because the bridge was so low they removed it quite quickly. So we're coming on to Bowling Back Lane now, and we're going to see the next bridge on the Bowling to Laisterdyke line after the Wakefield Road bridge. And here it is, crossing Bowling Back Lane. It would have had a stone parapet wall when it was built. At some point they've taken that off and they've put some courses of blue brick on it and then some railings. Now the reason you do that is to lessen the strain on the arch, so they must have had some weakness of the arch. You can see the old tie rods that they've put in there to try and hold it up, and even then it is sagging a little bit if you look at it, the stone course along the top of the arch there. Sorry folks, I was going to get eaten by a dog then, but it turned out to be on the lead, so we're alright. So yeah, if we go under, you can see the repair work to it's been done many years ago. It's not recent, so I wouldn't worry too much about it falling on my head as I go under it. Just across the road there where the bus carriage is, that was Bowling steam shed, engine shed. I'll just turn around so you can probably hear me for the wind noise. In 1958 it was closed and redeveloped as Hamilton Street Diesel Depot, and that's where the Calder Valley diesel multiple units that I mentioned in part one were based for most of their lives. It closed as a railway depot in 1984, May 1984. It was used for a couple of years after that to store preserved locomotives. The electric locomotive Electra was stored there when it first came back to the UK, but then after a few years it was cleared and demolished, and most of the site was redeveloped as the bus garage, and there are some other industrial units on it. So I'll just show you the other side of the bridge. They come thick and fast on this bit. We're just round the corner from the next one, so there you go, very nice. See the marvellous stonework here as it crosses the road on a skew. It really is something. It's a good piece of craftsmanship. So you've got a returning wall there at the bottom of the embankment, just as we go around into Hamilton Street, the street that gave the diesel depot its name, and immediately we've got Hamilton Street Bridge. bridges get progressively higher on this bit because it's climbing towards Laisterdyke. So this one's 14'6". I think Hampton Street's 14 foot. Bowling Back Lane, should I say, is 14'3". But the signs were worn, so I couldn't see it. But there you go. So that's still got its original stone parapet wall. As you can see, it's had a couple of tie rods put in at some point as well, but nowhere near the amount of Bowling Back Lane bridge there. I'll just take you under it and we'll film the other side if we can. See the bridge on the Bradford to Leeds line just there as well. They're very close to each other at this point. We're not far from the junction at Laisterdyke. So there's the bridge from the other side. As you can see, it had the insect gutters, or downpipes should I say, that a lot of bridges of this area did. I'll just show you where the insect downpipe has been. You can see there it would have been dug into the stonework. So nowadays this little bit of street that we're going to walk up is marked up as part of Hampton Street, but it was apparently called Muff Street originally, and that's all I'm going to say on that. So we're coming up to the next bridge now, which is Birksland Street. So if you can hear me with the car going past making a scraping noise at Birksland Street, it's pretty close to Hampton Street. Hampton Street's just there, you can see just where the police car's going, that's Hampton Street now. So we're very close to it. Turn the corner, there it is. The 13-foot restriction doesn't apply to this one. This doesn't have a restriction sign on it, so it's above 16 feet I think it is when they stop putting the height sign on it. The 13-foot one is the bridge on the Leeds to Bradford line behind it that you can see a bit further along. For anybody who normally watches my videos, you'll know I usually have a border collie called Alfie with me. I haven't got him today, don't worry, he's absolutely fine, he's at home with my wife. The reason is, as you might have seen in the news recently, the train service around the north of England has not been what it should be. And at one time coming from Grimsby to Bradford and back in a day wouldn't have been a problem. But nowadays it really is. So what I've done, I've booked a hotel for the night in Bradford. So when I've done this, I'm going to go down into Bradford Centre. I'm going to do a couple of other videos, one looking at the remains of the original exchange station and one looking at the former Adolphus Street terminus. Sorry, I just filmed my camera again, I keep doing that, don't I? I'm taking still shots with the other hand whilst I'm doing the video. There we go, nice shot of it. So yeah, this one's got its original stone parapet wall as well. But yeah, so I'm going to do a few more videos, I'm going to do a few more bits in the Bradford area. I've not been to Bradford for a few years. I used to live in Leeds until about 5 or 6 years ago. So I used to visit Bradford quite regularly. But I've not been for a while, so I'm going to catch up with the place. It's a place I like, I do like Bradford. You can see this had some repair work done. It's had the inside of the arch skimmed in concrete. So I'm assuming they've had a problem with some loose masonry at some point. I'll go under it and get a shot of the other side. I'm going to walk up the street a little bit as well. The next two bridges are Mount Street and Birkshall Lane. Now both of those streets have been blocked off part way along. Mount Street Bridge is now within an industrial complex and Birkshall Lane is down a half derelict lane next to a traveller camp. So I'm going to see if I can get pictures of them, but I'll show you the other side of them before we go down. Either way, there is a video on my channel taken from a train where I pass the scrapyard at Laisterdyke, and I've filmed Mount Street and Birkshall Lane bridges from the passing train on the Leeds to Bradford line. So if I don't manage to get better shots of them than I'm going to show you in a moment, you can have a look at that one if you're interested and you'll be able to see them. So this is the 13-foot bridge. It's a fairly modern one, as you can see. It's a modern concrete one. As you can also see, it's been hit a few times already. I believe they just put this sort of high-vis panelling onto it, but underneath the concrete's quite scored where it's been struck by various vehicles that haven't taken any notice of the height restriction sign. I think probably from that side they get lulled into a false sense of security by the high bridge on the Bowling Laisterdyke line, and I think they're going to fit under this one as well. So this used to be Mount Street. As you can see, the bridge carrying the Leeds to Bradford line has been blocked in with breeze blocks. But you can just about see the parapet wall of the Bowling Laisterdyke bridge above it. But the street itself has now been taken into an industrial complex here. And then Bexhall Lane is just a few feet along, and it's had the same thing again. The Leeds Bradford line bridge has been filled in with breeze blocks. I think you can see the Bowling Laisterdyke bridge sticking up above it. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, you can. So there's the Leeds Bradford bridge in the foreground, and then the Bowling Laisterdyke bridge behind it. Again, there are better shots of those from a passing train on a short video on my channel. Check that out if you want to see some better footage. I'm going to try and get around the other side of them if I can, without being sort of attacked by dogs or anything like that, but we'll see how we get on. Train going over the Leeds Bradford bridge there. For anybody who didn't watch part 1 of this series on the Bowling Laisterdyke line, I'm doing this in February 2023, just out of interest in case you're wondering when it's being filmed. I was saying in part 1 it was the Wakefield Road bridge that fired my interest in this line. It's a really unusual bridge. Check out part 1 if you want to hear about the history of that bridge. But I used to live in Bowling about 20 years ago, and quite frequently used to pass under it. And it fascinated me, so I came to look at the rest of the line as well. And absolutely lovely line, really well engineered. Some really interesting bridges. One of the best ones spanned the footpath between West Bowling Viaduct and Hall Lane level crossing. Unfortunately, we tried to get there earlier on today, as you'll see in part 1, and you can't get to it anymore. They've blocked the footpath off that led to it, which is a shame. You can't even see it now. It's sort of buried in a builder's yard. But anyway, we're just making our way back to Bowling Back Lane. I'm going to go up and try and get down Mount Street and Bexhall Lane. Just pan through the fence there, you can see Mount Street Bridge just in front of the tall sort of granary building there. But I will try and get around to it and see if I can get a better shot. So I'm still making my way around to Mount Street, which is going up Bowling Back Lane at the moment. We're quite unlucky on this one really. The wind noise is quite bad in parts of it, which I apologise for. There's been no wind for most of the week. And then there was a named storm yesterday, I think Storm Otto, and we're just in the tails of that at the moment. Unfortunately, I've been working all week, so I couldn't do the video any earlier, otherwise I'd done it on one of the calm days. I also thought, because it's Saturday morning, 18th of February 2023, it's about 10 to 11, it was about 10 o'clock when I started from New Cross Street. I thought the traffic noise would be less on a Saturday morning, but obviously not. We're not doing very well with that either, I'm afraid. So apologies for both of those. I hope it hasn't affected your enjoyment of the video too much. So this is the remains of Mount Street. Bridge is within the Adams Food Service depot at the bottom. I'm not sure they'll be happy with me filming, but I'll just see if I can stand near the gate and get a picture for you. So there you go folks, I'm not going to go any further because I don't want to trespass in the factory, but you can see the bridge is within the factory complex there. Quite a nice shot of it. So we're going to go around to Bexhall Lane now. Annoyingly, Bexhall Lane's about 20 yards to my left, but I've got to go all the way back to Bowling back lane and go around because there's no way onto it directly from here, or not that I can see anyway. So yeah, apart from the wind noise and the traffic noise, I'm also battling a broken toe. Stupid, I broke the little toe on my left foot about a week ago, and I've been going to work as normal, walking Alfie, and now I'm doing this walk today. But I booked the hotel, so I was going to come. It's all strapped up. It does hurt, but we're getting through. But if the camera works a little bit more lumpy than normal, that's why. Well, that and being attacked by dogs and nearly run over by various people, but you know, all these things considered. See, as I said earlier, they always think of this line as just a little bit of a branch line, avoiding Bradford Exchange and later Bradford Interchange. But it wasn't. It had a through passenger service from Leeds to Liverpool on a regular basis, and it carried quite heavy freight traffic. Until the early 1970s, there was a gasworks along here which took coal in via the line, Berkshall Gasworks. But that closed in the early 70s when they stopped using coal gas and went over to natural gas. There was also a goods depot along here, Plantree's goods depot, and that was where the scrapyard is now. The scrapyard took over most of that. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to go very far down here, folks. It looks like it's somebody's yard, and I don't really want to get attacked by dogs. Can we see the bridge? That is the question. No, it doesn't look like we can. As I say, there is a video on my channel where you can. We've seen the other side of it from Berkshall Street. And there's a video on my channel where you can see me going past it on the train. You can get quite a nice view of it from the train. So please check that one out if you want to see what it looks like. I'm not going to go down there because I don't want to have a trespass on somebody's property or get attacked by guard dogs. I believe the gasworks I was talking about was in here. This is the wall of it, but it's now surrounding a travellers' camp. I think we're nearly there, folks. I did a site visit to this line about 10 years ago, and I'm sure it wasn't as far as this to Plantree's Road. It probably seems further because my foot's hurting, and it's not at all because I've got 10 years older. It's absolutely nothing to do with it at all. Honest. So here we are, folks, Plantree's Road. On the left hand side here was Plantree's goods depot, which was served by the Bowling Laisterdyke line. Some of it's in use today as the scrapyard, which provided traffic for the line. It still does every now and again. It's not been used for a few years, the rail connection, but whenever the price of scrap increases, they tend to start using the train again for a bit. The connection's maintained in a condition where it can be used if necessary. I think it was about 2020 the last time they actually used it, but it's been intermittent. In the early 2000s it hadn't been used for quite a number of years, and we thought it would never open again, and it did. And they've used it on and off ever since, which is nice to see. As I explained in part one, they closed the Bowling Laisterdyke line by putting the point where back in. They'd removed the points at Laisterdyke so they could simplify the layout in 1969, and then from that date you could only get onto the Bowling Laisterdyke line from the Bowling Junction end. But decided in 1985 they wanted to close the line, so what they did, they put the points back in at Laisterdyke so that you could get into the scrapyard directly from the Leeds to Bradford line. Given how simple closing the line was, it's amazing they didn't do it before, really. But because from Bowling Junction it's about 1.75 miles of quite heavily engineered line, it would be quite expensive to maintain. And you know, for want of a set of points, it seems odd that it took them about 16 years to actually close it. So I think this little doorway would have been some sort of entrance into Plantree's goods yard at one point. We just come up to to the railway bridge. When I came 10 years ago on a site visit, this had big vertical wooden boards along it, so you couldn't see over the top of them. I had to film through a knot hole in the wood. Luckily they've been removed in more recent years, so you can see straight over the parapet, which is nice. So on the left here, where this car and trailer's coming out, this is a scrapyard that sometimes uses the railway EMR metal recycling. And again, this would have been the boundary wall of the Plane Trees goods yard. And there we go, so there's the remains of the Bowling Laisterdyke line. Going off into the distance, you can see there's a loading pad for the scrapyard there, which isn't in use at the moment, but could be used if it needed to be. The line going off to the right is a run-round loop to get the locomotive from one end to the other. That was put in 1985 when they installed the point work to enable them to close the Bowling Laisterdyke line. It's not used at the moment. I'll explain why in a minute. So this is the Leeds to Bradford line, you can see here. Just under me there's a connection, you can see it on the other side of the road. That's across now, just have to go around these barriers. Yeah, you can see there, if I zoom into where the signal is, there's a set of points going off the down or Bradford bound line, so the one sort of coming towards us. And what trains for the scrapyard would do is they'll come past that and then reverse into the head shunts beyond, then pull forward again, go under the bridge on the rusty track you can see there that I've just been looking at from the other side, and into the scrapyard. Now originally they would have the loco would have run round to the other end, pulled the train back out into the head shunts, come back across there, and then there was a main-to-main crossover, so from the right hand line there to the left hand line, took you back towards Leeds. They've taken that out in more recent times, so now the locomotive stays on the same end. When it's finished loading at the scrapyard, it just reverses back along the head shunt with the train. It pulls back forward over that connection and it goes along under this bridge to Bradford interchange, and the engine runs round in Bradford interchange. So yeah, the set of points in the distance there is the set of points that enabled the Bowling to Laisterdyke line to be closed in September 1985. So that's the end of this video. I hope you've enjoyed it, despite the best efforts of various people in hoodies smoking interesting looking cigarettes, dogs attacking me, and people seeming to drive at me. We've got to the end of it, so I hope you've enjoyed it. Please check out part 1 when we went from the site of Bowling Junction to Wakefield Road. If you haven't seen that one already, as I said earlier on, please look at the bit where I pass Mount Street and Birksall Lane bridges on the train. So again, thank you for watching. Please take care of yourselves. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now. Bye.